So I figure I'd talk about my problems with relationships. And God, just in the last 2 years, 2.5 years, I've had and ended 3 relationships. One with my wife for 18 years, my only wife that I ever had. Then with my baby mama in Ireland, and that ended on poor terms. And then my recent girlfriend, who I'm a business partner with, and we're still working together, but not together. And so I have to assess the damage and look at where I've went wrong, and assess whether I have things to fix or not, or maybe I have to try things differently. Instead of doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result, which is Einstein's definition of insanity. And in 3 of my relationships, one thing that I've continued to say is that I need to get therapy. Not only would I like to get therapy for me, and I did try it, while I had the money to pay for it because my insurance wouldn't, but, not only do I need to get therapy, but I would like to do therapy with my significant other. And maybe it's just not a traditional type of therapy. Maybe just trying a different approach to talk about things and figure out each other's triggers. I felt pretty good about my first marriage for most of it, and I don't know, she sees it differently, but I don't think we fought nearly as much as I've seen other people fight in relationships. And we had a lot of people tell us how cute of a couple we were and how perfect we were together for the first 10 years, and it was great. It was a good relationship, and I look forward to being in that relationship almost every day. I think gender roles are important. I do. I think that they're natural. And I know that this new society we live in disagrees with that, those are societal constructs, or those are, not natural orders of human nature. I see that a lot for, all the media that's being produced on social media, and all of the new wave of, I don't know whether you call it feminism or woke culture or whatever, that gender roles are not a reality, that they're forged and created by society. And I don't think so. And I think that gender roles are the reason why in the 1950s and prior to that, men and women stayed together for most of their lives. Once they got married, there was a lot less divorces. There was 20-something% divorce rate, compared to what we have now, which is far, far higher. And it was because we had established gender roles, and those gender roles worked, right? But I'm not just looking at humanity. We have to look at, nature too. I mean, in most creatures, not all, but most creatures, there's an order of gender that, that gender does what they all typically do, and that's different from their opposite gender. In wolf packs or whatever, you'll see there's alpha male and alpha female, but alpha male, is typically the leader of the pack. The alpha male supports him and also leads the pack. But, there's a primary and a secondary. Just like in a corporation, you'll see, there's only one. There's a CEO, and then underneath that CEO, there might be a vice CEO or a vice president or something like that. But there's always just, one leader, and then supportive leaders, and then, other people, other workers, and so on and so forth. And, you see that in lion packs too, where the lion really is the boss, even though the females go out and hunt and bring back food, and, they do their chores, they do what they do to make the pack survive, make the pride survive. The boss man is the lion, right? And he keeps order, and he fights off opposing forces, the hyenas and such, he'll be the first to battle. And then he might get backed up by other members of the pride, and he's the one that chooses the mates, and he's the one that, kind of rules the roost. And I think that the natural order of life is present in almost all creatures. You see, like, what is it, seahorses, and there's some others that have a reverse gender role or a blended gender role. And so I get that it's not the rule, it's not the absolute rule. There are exceptions to the rule, but I think that the rules exist in nature just like they do in humanity, in our nature. And now we've got this new culture, and Andrew Tate talked about it, where it's like, we've got a culture now, and it's possibly just a manipulated social engineering thing, but where young women now are being taught and are teaching others, you've got to be an insufferable, cantankerous, ornery, I'm not going to say the word, but he uses the B word to describe it. And it's all about getting the bag and, making sure that you got yours, and, defending your own goals and everything, and making sure that no matter what, you're top dog and all this. And, it's not about working together with a man anymore. It's not about a partnership as much. It's more about, well, don't oppress me. And if you want to lead, then that means you're oppressing me. And if you want to, take on a traditional male gender role, then you're oppressing me. And this is society as we see it today. That we get this definition of masculinity now as pretty much all masculinity is toxic masculinity. You get the guy that wants to defend the village. You get the guy that wants to lead the pack. You want the guy that wants to orchestrate jobs and projects and things. And, that's now narcissistic or toxic or, whatever. And, masculinity is being bred out of society more and more and being labeled as toxic. You don't hear a lot about toxic femininity, but the toxic femininity now is, well, I'm independent and nobody can control me. And if anybody wants to lead the household, that's a man, that they're narcissistic, or whatever the new, gender role or gender defiance or gender activism is. You hear about all this stuff. So, certainly I get territorial and I try to defend my ground, my territory, and I try to lead and I try to be the leader, the head of household, let's say. And I don't try too hard, I believe. Maybe I do, but that seems to be where I have a problem with women, is where if I try to lead and take on my traditional gender role, that I get a lot of negative feedback. And if I have a disagreement with my significant other, she's out gossiping to her girlfriends. Oh, he's controlling, he's narcissistic, he's this, he's that, blah, blah, blah. And, after reading texts that my exes have had between friends of theirs, and themselves, I don't see them taking responsibility like, oh, well, maybe I should have done, or maybe I was this, or maybe I should reevaluate that, or, maybe it's partly my fault. I don't ever see that. I always see the females in my life, at least, and I hear females in other relationships blaming it completely on toxic masculinity, or males with, a significant masculinity problem or narcissism or whatever it is. They're always, pointing the finger at the males. But I think if we look at nature and we look at patterns in this world, nature doesn't have a social construct that's leading gender roles or defining gender roles. Lions or wolves or whatever, they're not being defined by some, social media presence or some, leadership in their community that says that, whatever, they're just following their nature, right? They're just doing what comes natural. If we just look at patterns, we can see that when we step outside of those patterns, then we have disagreements. We have way higher divorce rates. We have, toxic relationships where the kids get hurt in all the fighting and all the back and forth. I think patterns are important. I think we should look at those and carefully analyze how we treat each other and and how we work together and what works best and what doesn't work. Doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result doesn't seem to be working. And there's a new generation of children coming up that are wrecked over this stuff. I think we need to relook at this.